Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Got it. Let's go. If you are not into this game, if you are not excited about this game, you're either not a college football fan or you're a South Carolina Gamecock fan because you hate both of these teams. Welcome everybody, this is On Tap Sports. We cover all the sports all the time, primarily college football and pro football, and today we have a doozy for you. Probably the best week 1 matchup I have seen in a very, very long time. In fact, off the top of my head, I can't think of a better one than this one. Clemson versus Georgia, 7:30 p.m. on ABC at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. Clemson opens as a 3-point favorite. 51.5 is the over-under. And first thing I want to say is I love that this is at a neutral site, because with all the speculation on different conferences, which conference is better, which team is better from which conference, all that stuff, that takes it all out of there. This is not a home and home. This is at a neutral site. May the best team win, and I am all here for it. We're going to find out at the gates which team's for real, which team's not, or maybe both teams are for real, which is what I'm going to predict. And one has to win, obviously. Again, Clemson opens as a 3-point favorite, and that's what I want to start out with, is who has more to lose here, Clemson or Georgia? That's a big talking point, because Clemson, the rest of their schedule, at no fault of their own, as usual, looks a little weak. And so will they be able to make up the ground should they lose this game? My personal opinion on that is, yes, they will be able to. They've built up a reputation. They're too good of a football team. You know Dabo's going to be talking, so they'll be fine. I don't think they have anything to lose here. They're good to go even if they do lose. And I will say that for Georgia. They're also good if they lose this game, because their schedule, they're still in the SEC East. So you got Florida. Obviously, that's at a neutral site. I think they play Auburn on the road this season, so that's going to be tough. But Georgia plays pretty well against Auburn in recent years and as of late, so they should be fine as well. Their schedule's not exactly daunting outside of possibly that SEC championship game. But if you had me pick, I'm going to go with Georgia. Their schedule a little bit harder, and for that reason, they have more to lose and cannot afford to lose this game in that regard, comparatively. Let's talk Clemson's offense, shall we? And it all starts with the signal caller, DJ Uiagalelei, who is a big, tall, dominating presence, much like Trevor Lawrence. He is very, very good at standing in the pocket, has a strong arm, 10-point accuracy. He's really good. He's really good. In fact, 342 passing yards in his first start last season, October 31st against Boston College, then followed that up with a 439-yard affair against Notre Dame. That is the most passing yards Notre Dame has ever given up in their very prideful history. So we know DJ can get it done, and he obviously has a lot to throw to. And Justyn Ross, obviously Ross was hurt last season. Man, he can beat you on the edges. He is a speedster. I'm sure the Clemson family is excited to see him back, and I'm sure he is eager to play. And you don't want to mess with an eager receiver at Clemson University. He figures to play a heavy part in the passing game, but they're also so very talented outside of that. Joe Ngata, former 4-star, EJ Williams, former 4-star, and probably one of the best former 3-stars in the entire nation in Joe. So that Clemson wide receiver core is excellent. Excellent to say the least. That will not be the issue. Braden Galloway at the tight end position, sometimes Davis Allen. They're good there as well. Running back, pretty stacked as well. Lyn-J Dixon, he figures to be the starter. He averages 6.6 yards per carry in his Clemson career. That is second only to Travis Etienne, who is now with the Jaguars, along with Trevor Lawrence. But he is absolutely being pushed by Kobe Pace, and also Will Shipley, the 5-star athlete, number 32 overall, number 2 in the state of North Carolina, who is getting Joe Mixon comparisons. I've seen those kind of comparisons, and a lot of Clemson people very, very high on Will Shipley, and rightfully so. Let's talk about Shipley, because I think he's going to factor maybe not only into this game, but into the season as a whole for Clemson. First off, he's 5'11", 203 pounds, and he is close to his ideal size even as a freshman at the running back position. And man, he can do it all. Sub 4.5 40, great speed and burners, excellent vision. He has a knack to find the hole, and really once he finds it, he gets through it in a hurry. And if you try to arm tackle him, I'm looking at you, Florida State, South Carolina. If you try to arm tackle this guy, he's going to go right through it. He really has all the intangibles from the highlights that I've seen, from the articles that I've read about him, from just different practices and the articles that are written about those practices. He is a very, very complete running back, and he has a bright future at Clemson. And I don't use that term lightly. A lot of players are great at Clemson these days. He figures to be the next great one for the Tigers, but he still is behind the shadows of Lyn-J Dixon at the moment, who again will be the starter, and he's earned it. Where Clemson's offense will need some help, up front, man, up front. They struggled plenty to create holes for Travis Etienne last season. Now Dabo Swinney says, and he swears by it, that they are a much improved unit. They returned 3 guys from last season's unit. We will see if Dabo can put his money where his mouth is on that, because they're going to need it. Because if there's a way that Georgia can win this game, it will be up front. It will be up front, because their defensive line, as opposed to Clemson's offensive line, and just their front seven as a whole, is spectacular. So let's get into that. Georgia's defense going up against that Clemson offense. Georgia, one of the best front sevens in the entire nation, led by their senior nose tackle, Jordan Davis. This front seven is big, quick, athletic, everything you want. Sophomore Jalen Carter, senior Devontae Wyatt, senior Julian Rochester. They are stout there. And Clemson's offensive line does struggle to some regard and cannot establish a running game at all to be able to allow DJ Uiagalelei to go over the top. Watch out, Clemson. They're going to miss Monty Rice at linebacker, of course, but they do still have Nakobe Dean. He returns. He led the team in tackles in 2020. Adam Anderson, who is one of the best pass rushers in the nation as an outside linebacker, and a former #1 overall prospect in Nolan Smith. Obviously, he's good just off of that alone. So if you're Georgia, the goal is absolutely to win the trenches and win that line of scrimmage, and do not allow DJ Uiagalelei to get comfortable in the pocket. Once you stop that running game, you can then keep the focus on the passing game, and all of a sudden, you don't allow Uiagalelei to just go crazy with that unbelievable receiving core of his. That's how you win if you're Georgia, at least on the defensive end. If you're Clemson, you want to do the opposite. You want to establish that running game so that you can then go over the top, and once you're able to do that, if you're able to do that, that's where Georgia is very, very vulnerable. Their secondary, while extremely talented, is fresh. They're young. And you got to know that Clemson's offensive coordinator and the offense as a whole is licking their chops to try to go over the top and take advantage of that young secondary, because in a game like this, big plays can be the difference between winning and losing. And there is a lot of big play ability, as I said, for that wide receiving core of Clemson. And when you mix that in with Georgia's inexperience, watch out. There could be a lot of 40, 50, we'll go back to 30-yard pass plays, and some for touchdowns, some for big momentum switching plays. So let's now talk Georgia's offense against Clemson's defense, and you know it all starts with their signal caller, JT Daniels, the former 5-star prospect. And you know Georgia threw 4 times over 300 yards last season, and JT Daniels was 2 of those in only 4 starts. So he comes in, he's able to throw the ball over the top, throw the deep ball with much more accuracy than Stetson Bennett and some of those other guys, which made the Georgia offense so much more troublesome to deal with, so much more powerful, so much more dynamic. And so he's able to do that for you. And once you get that passing game going, you have that running back group, which is stacked. Obviously, I'm not telling you any secrets. Georgia's running back group always stacked. This year they come in with Zamir White, 11 touchdowns last season, 3 100-yard efforts in his final 6 games. James Cook, oh my God, I could go on and on about him. Great runner, great pass catcher out of the backfield. You also got Kenny McIntosh, Kendall Milton. Bro, this group is dynamic. They are awesome. They're good there. At the wide receiver position, obviously, George Pickens, the big news, tore his ACL in the offseason. I've done that twice, both on my right knee and my left knee. I know how that feels, so praying for him to have a speedy recovery. Best of luck to you in that, George Pickens. But They're still very talented with Kearis Jackson, who had more receiving yards than George Pickens in 2020. He had 514 yards on 36 receptions. Jermaine Burton, best hands on the team in my opinion. Arian Smith, he's the burner, the speedster of the group. So they got a little bit of diversity in that group. Some guys that can go up and catch the ball in the air. Some guys that can beat you deep. Some guys that can run some cross routes, post routes up the middle, and then take it to the house. And they're also in very, very good shape on the offensive line. Plenty of experience, high ceilings there, 3 returning starters from last season, and unlike Clemson last season, they did not really struggle in that regard, so those 3 returners are solid returners, and the other 2 in waiting were very, very good, just had somebody a little bit better in front of them. Georgia's offensive line in good shape. Their offense as a whole is in really good shape, but they're going against a very, very superior, probably one of the best defenses, if not the best defenses in the nation in Clemson. They returned 10 of 11 starters, and I hate to give away my prediction early, and I'll give you the score later, but this is why I'm picking Clemson in this game. This is why I'm going to take Clemson to win this game. Their defense, again, 10 of 11 starters returned. They're so experienced. They know what it's like to be under the bright lights. However, there are some times where they struggled under those bright lights. They, of course, have lost to Notre Dame and Ohio State and LSU in recent years, so they're starting to see a little bit more of a trend than what they're used to in losing these big games. And you look at Clemson's secondary, as experienced as they are, against Justin Fields last season, 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, and they got absolutely picked apart on that back end. But man, again, those guys are experienced. Nolan Turner, Andrew Booth, Sheridan Jones, Mario Goodrich. I think they're going to be fine. I think that might have been a one-off kind of situation where they struggled just a little bit, but they're also not going against Justin Fields' passing attack. They're going against JT Daniels and crew, who, again, is without George Pickens, so it's a different ball game. There's a reason why this is a 51.5 over-under. It's not going to be that high-scoring of an affair, and JT Daniels is not going to loft the ball in the air and get open receivers the way Justin Fields did, in my opinion. Also, Ohio State did a very, very good job running the ball in that game. Shoot, were there like 253 yards or something like that, I think? Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be way off on that, but I think Ohio State had a lot of rushing yards. Trey Sermon had a heck of a game. I do know that. So that helps a lot, and I don't think Georgia's going to be able to do that even with their excellent offensive line and their ridiculous running back group. I think Clemson's front 7 is too good to give that kind of performance up this time around. Speaking of Clemson up front, Brian Brees returns 33 tackles last season, 6.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He's joined by Tyler Davis, Miles Murphy, KJ Henry, Justin Foster, Xavier Thomas. Wow. It scares me just saying those names, man. James Gowski at the linebacker position. Clemson, very, very complete group on defense. Again, that's why I'm going with them. So let's go ahead and go with the prediction here, shall we? I'm picking Clemson in this one because of that experience. Both teams have some vulnerabilities, have a couple vulnerabilities. Primarily for Clemson, it's the offensive line. Those are where the most question marks go. And for Georgia, the most question marks go at the secondary. So both teams very much weak in areas that you don't really want to be weak at. You don't want to have porous offensive line play, and you don't want to have porous secondary play. But in this game, with DJ Uiagalelei and the different weapons that he has, I'm more worried if I'm a Georgia fan for that secondary. I think I take Dabo Swinney by his word that the offensive line for Clemson has been very much improved, and they have some experience under their belts, whereas Georgia has no experience, not very little experience in that secondary. And if Clemson can just get a little bit of running game going, again, Lyn-J Dixon, 6.6 yards per carry. And you got Kobe and you got Will Shipley, you got some studs. If they can get just a little bit of momentum going from that running game, look out over the top. I expect a lot of big plays in this game despite the 51.5 over-under. I think some of the scoring plays will be off of big plays, and that will be the deciding factor. Clemson wins this one 28-24, which means they both cover the spread because they're favored by 3, and the over is hit by half a point. Over-under is 51.5. 28-24 Clemson. That is my final score prediction. Let me know what you think. What'd you think of this video as a whole? What did I get wrong? What did I get right? What's your score prediction and why? This is On Tap Sports. We cover all the sports all the time. We'll see you tomorrow for Alabama, Miami. We'll be previewing that one. Until then, God bless, take care, and we'll see you soon.